What are you drinking?
Try it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
Is it? Try mine.
Oh, I already know what yours is like.
Ooh.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Ordinary Freaks. B and Eddie here, and today we have another special guest. She comes all the way from New York, Milwaukee native, and fashion designer. Please help me welcoming Elena Velez.
Hi. Hey, guys.
How's it going? How's it going?
It's going good. How are you guys?
Good.
Good.
We were obviously chatting it up earlier, but before we get into the deep questions and what you've been doing lately with the amazing work, where did your love for fashion and design came from? Was there anything specific that you remember where it kind of stemmed from and it kind of took off from?
Yeah. I guess my love for fashion is kind of deep-rooted, really. I was drawn to it as a child before I even knew that it was a career path that I could go down. And it was just something that I had a love for. I was just fascinated with the female form, and since before I could remember, I was really pasting and cutting and gluing and drawing over the female form and just trying to express myself in some abstract way. And then as I grew up, everyone kind of introduced me to Project Runway, which was the hot thing that everyone kind of knew about at the time. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of my introduction to, wow, this is a potential career path that I could go down, and this is something I could see myself doing. And I guess now that I know a little bit more about myself and my inclinations as an artist and a designer, I think that what I really love about fashion is that it's one of those practices where the process is as valuable as the product. And I can really explore myself and my inclinations as an artist through that practice. And that the product itself is something that wouldn't exist if I didn't exist, or the things that made me, including my society, my environment, my collaborators, didn't also influence. Mm-hmm. So it's a very cool cumulative process, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's awesome that you mentioned that. I believe that through and through. We all here for a purpose, and
Totally.
B, wouldn't be B without him, right? There's nothing, although he gets influenced, I get influenced a lot by all this stimulus around us. Mm-hmm. We all walk our own walk.
Right. Totally. So we're all products of our environment and our friends, and So I think that's cool. And I think that that's why I've had a lot of success in what I do, is that I bring that with me, and that kind of very specific cultural perspective that isn't really spoken about in New York. We're from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Everyone's like, wow, what does an artist from Milwaukee, Wisconsin have to say?
Right.
And so it's cool to be able to bring that perspective to my work.
So as a kid, were your parents always supportive of this, doing fashion?
Yeah. My mom, who I grew up with, was always incredibly supportive, which is something that I value to this day. She was really my momager at the time. And when I was starting off, she was the one who was kind of my little press secretary and my assistant, and she was kind of always looking for the next opportunity because I was really voracious and I really needed something more. I'd have a class and it would end and I would be like, what's next? Mm-hmm. And my mom was always the one to say, okay, I found this, and this.
Right.
I'm going to work another job to make sure that it happens for you, which is incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm graduating college right now. My mom works 3 jobs to help me through school, and it's just, she's my rock.
Man,
totally.
That's support right there.
Yeah, completely.
That's crazy. Man, that's awesome. I didn't even think you were going to go that deep because, well, it just, I just kind of had, to live through your shoes right now. My mom's been the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Just been the rock of the family.
Completely.
Ever since I
Yeah,
was
moms
born.
are dope.
So I definitely get where that support comes from. I wanted to ask you, she was obviously your rock and everything. What's one memory specifically, and if you don't want to give us when you were I'm gonna become famous, or maybe not famous, but you're this is it for the rest of my life, and no one's gonna tell me no.
I think that moment kind of came this year, because up until this year, I was really man, is this something, I have a passion for it, and I want to do it, but does it agree that, how do I explain this? it's like, yeah, you can want something, but if it doesn't want you back, it's not going to happen for you.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I have all of these things to say, and this is something that I'm passionate about, but is it really something that I can make work and be successful in? And this year, I realized that you have to love it. You have to be obsessed with it. It can't be about the lifestyle. It's got to be about the craft. And through that, I realized that, yeah, I have what it takes to really make this something
In
viable.
school, do you see a lot of people doing it for the wrong reasons?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I go to school at Parsons, the new school, which is in New York City. And I would say that a lot of our students are predominantly from wealthy families overseas. These are the kids of like very, very wealthy manufacturers, producers, people within the garment industry abroad who are sending their kids over kind of to learn how to run the family business. And so once they get their degrees, they're all back to their families to take over the, the factories and the buildings. I don't know. But yeah, so there are very few students there who are in it for the right reasons, I think. Lots of people want to be famous. Being a fashion designer is very hot right now. It's very trendy. Everybody thinks that they know what it takes. But I'd say that there are maybe 30% of the students there who are there because they have a scholarship and they're just so hungry for it and they're craft-based and they're excited about what they do. And it shows.
You mentioned you like the entire process and the fact that you can go through the process and at the end see that process play out with the actual garment or whatever it might be. Do you have a specific, how would I say this? A specific creative process, or how do you get into those blocks of just creating?
Yeah.
And do you ever get stuck in those blocks of just creating?
Absolutely.
And not
That's
going
the hardest part, I would say, is like you come up with a concept and then there are so many directions that you could take it in. And it's scary to take the first step because one step in this direction eliminates all of the potential to take a step in that direction and that direction. So it can be very crippling to be in that stage. But you just have to keep generating content and moving forward in one direction. And whether or not it's the right one or not, you're still going to come up with something that's relevant to the specific and original concept, I think. So.
Okay. And there's a specific creative process, like, some people like to have this here, need to have 3 pencils here,
Totally.
or to create.
Yeah, I don't think that I have any quirks like that.
Okay.
But I do follow a very didactic process when it comes down to coming up with a conceptual process. I like to gather a lot of primary and secondary research. So primary research is what is kind of known as research and generating content that comes from within. So it's like my drawings, my photographs, my interviews with people, generating and creating inspiration from my own perspective. So, and then there's secondary research, which is really going into literature and kind of studying and researching how other people have kind of appropriated or spoken about a particular concept. And then from there, you have kind of this body of work and you can start to begin forming connections and seeing what fits together and how a narrative is starting to come from that body of work. So.
For me, I think when I thought about design, I definitely began with outside sources and a lot of reading, a lot of trying to watch as many documentaries as I could about either the time period or whatever it might have been. But it always started with pencil and vellum or trace paper. Like,
definitely.
It never started on the computer. I tried to, and I thought I could have done, but the computer is so crippling at the same time. Even though there's infinite possibilities of what a design could be, you're constrained by the way your thought process works.
Absolutely.
Where like your pencil,
it's a vehicle.
Could be like a line could mean anything, right? So as soon as I start finding that out, like it just released everything. It was just like. Just blood ooze, just like the ideas just oozed on the paper, and it was amazing. And then obviously I took it to the computer, did the rendering, whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah, the tools that you choose also say a lot about you.
Yeah.
Like you chose this for a certain reason. Why?
Right.
And I guess that through your creative process, all of it comes down to you figuring out yourself a little bit more. And that's really cool that I can be part of a career that I make beautiful things that maybe speak to somebody else, but I get to learn about myself the entire time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and speak to things that are important to me.
You just mentioned that you were a recent graduate from Parsons New School in New York. For those who don't know about art and design, Parsons is one of the top schools in the world, if not the top school in the world, year in, year after. Trust me, as designers, we keep in tabs with all the design schools around the world. So everybody's like, and I mean, I think there's a thing, you know, like if you go on engineering,
they got
what's
those
the top?
lists.
Like universities are kind of funny that way.
Yeah, definitely.
But how was that experience played out? And was that your sole plan after you kind of realized that fashion, having your support, was that it, or did you always had a plan B?
Okay, so in high school I was trying really hard to bury fashion, and
That didn't work.
It didn't work. No, of course it didn't work. And so I was like, God, what can I do that would be a very practical and realistic direction to take my life in? Of course, I was in high school, everyone's taking their SATs, they're like, fashion art, that's not gonna help you, you're not gonna survive off of that. And so I sent off all of these applications to all of these colleges, and there were no art and design schools in any of them. And I had a week before a deadline for Parsons, and I was like, you know what? Let me just throw in an application to Parsons to see what they think. And so my decision was really made for me. I got no's across the board from all of the colleges, and Parsons was like, we want you, we'll give you a scholarship, come to Paris. Wow. And so I spent my first 2 years at Parsons Paris, took a year off to just travel and figure it out, and then I went back to Parsons New York. And Parsons was my dream school since I was about 12, literally.
Yeah. Wow.
I used to keep a little brochure from like the 2005 college program next to my bed. I was desperate to go to Parsons. And so going there, I don't really have much experience to compare it to. I couldn't really tell you if it was a better school than any of the other ones. But I know that I got what I needed to out of it. But yeah, I'm very fortunate. It's an incredible school. I had access to a lot of amazing things and a lot of perspectives that helped shape me as a designer. So I was very fortunate.
So from living in Paris, I think Sydney as well, and Brazil,
correct,
early on. You know, what are some of those things that stand out from those experiences, or things that you learned from living in several places?
Yeah, I guess I learned a lot personally, and I learned a lot professionally because, you know, obviously the fashion industry is very different in all of those places. So I feel like I've got a very well-rounded perspective on what it takes to be successful in those markets, which has been really helpful. But it's also been a really amazing growing experience as an individual too, and getting to kind of insert myself into all of these different cultures and societies that are obviously very different from the one that I come from. And it's a lesson in flexibility and inner strength. And it's been good. I've been really, really fortunate.
It takes a lot of courage to just pick up and go.
It's scary, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it's paid off tenfold. So
that's crazy. Man, I have like a million questions I want to ask you.
Let's do it.
Like we don't want to keep you too long. Let's talk about what you've been doing.
Yeah.
The amazing work you've been doing.
Thank you.
With your collection, I believe is Carry On and Carry On.
Correct. Yeah.
And the short film you released with that Machine Shop. Can you give us a little brief on that? Just for the people who can get familiarized with the work.
Cool. So this is part of my senior thesis. It's called And Carry On. And so as I was crafting the thesis, the intention was to come up with a body of work that really spoke to who I was as a designer, where I come from, and what my statement is as an artist. And so I was kind of thinking about all of the factors that I'm passionate about and some of the things that I have interests in. And so as I was coming up with this concept, I'm like, all right, so I really like apocalypses. I'm really intrigued by them. I think that they say a lot about our ability to destroy and create. I'm interested in sustainability. I think that fashion has a lot of room for improvement in that department, and I want to use my talents for good, I suppose. And I also really wanted to talk about Milwaukee, which is something that's so incredibly important to me. And so throughout the research, I came up with a body of work that is really inspired by aftermath industries, which are scenarios where people have been forced to design or create after some sort of societal collapse. Specifically World War II I used. And I was kind of speaking about this industrial reformation that was taking place called the controlled commodity industry, where people were designing and making garments according to regulations and specifications that had been outlined by the government, to adhere to certain ration schemes, to employ domestic labor, and I thought that it was all really inspiring. And I was wondering how we could appropriate that for a world that we live in today. And so as I was continuing my research, Milwaukee was actually a very important mechanism in World War II, in that we were kind of the source of a lot of American steel and metal. We've got a lot of old factory buildings, which are really incredible to me. And so I wanted to bring that in and also speak to the cultural contributions that Milwaukee's made then and now, which the now aspect is kind of what I got to do with my film. And so I got to collaborate with steelworkers in Milwaukee to create a collection that is both fabric and metal. And all of the material is actually repurposed. It's all time-specific, period-specific. So everything's from World War II and Milwaukee. So I think that it was kind of a good, well-rounded approach to what I was inspired by. So.
Yeah, and like the little tour I gave you prior to the interview, like it's very fitting that we're doing it in one of those buildings.
Yeah, it's incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
So this is great.
That's cool.
For that video, a little movie you got to do with it, there was some collaboration going on.
Definitely.
A lot from the city. Can you touch on that?
So I had this vision, and I wanted to make a fashion film that corresponded to the collection. And as I was kind of picking and choosing the people that I wanted to bring on board, I was like, you know what? I don't want to make a fashion film. I want to make a film that is inspired by some of the tropes that I'm talking about through my collection. But there are a lot of people that have a lot of incredible abilities that I want to bring on board, and I really want to open it up so that they can come and assert their artistic abilities as well. And so I got all of these amazing multidisciplinary creatives to come work with us. We had film directors, we had makeup artists, models, actors, actresses, we had spoken word artists, soundscape designers, set designers, and it was just such an incredibly meaningful collaboration to get to interact with these amazing people.
How challenging, I know we talked about this a little before, was kind of letting go of your vision and plan and working with other creators.
Collaborating is kind of a tricky experience, because for you to get the most out of all of your collaborators, you have to be flexible enough to say, you know what, I trust you with your job. I trust you to make whatever your contribution is the best that you can. And yeah, I have a vision and I have an idea of what I think that you could do with it, but it takes a certain degree of I trust you, which is scary as like a producer, because you have this general idea and you know what you want to get out of it, but you also want to let everybody else kind of assert themselves.
I think for the people that are like maybe not much of creators or artists, right? There's a stigma that artists or producers, creators, whatever you want to call them, have this thing where like they're the only person touching the art, body of work, etc. And people have to understand that like, yeah, there is maybe like the architect or the person that's maybe creating these guidelines, these rules, whatever. But at the same time, there's always have to be someone else maybe aiding in that process, and whatever it might be, because we're not perfect, right?
Absolutely.
So, you definitely got to realize that the world is moving in more of a collaborative spirit, and it's always been like that. I mean, like to create huge facilities, huge companies, big names, like there's always been people behind those names supporting that idea.
Absolutely.
So,
and
I just wanted to get it out that like
totally
people gotta stop thinking that like if you're an artist, you're the only one that has to.
That's not the case at all. Art is just so subjective too. I could say I want you to draw me a picture of a house, and everyone in the room is going to draw you a different picture of the house. So learning how to have the vocabulary and how to articulate what you want is very important in fashion and art in general. But also being open to suggestion and realizing that as a producer of a project like that, you are a manager of a creative team. You're not, there to chase everybody up to make sure that they're doing exactly what you want. So that's important. And that was a skill that I didn't have before as like an independent designer, I would always approach a project and say, this is exactly what I want. I cannot have any deviation. And once I opened myself up to letting people contribute their best work, the project really takes on a new life.
Yeah.
And it's so much more special than anything that one single person could create on their
Like
own.
I hate all the stuff I did in school, but like there's one little stupid project that we did, and it's not even, it's like more like an installation.
Sure.
But we did it. It was like a weekend project. They only gave us like 4 days to do this, and it's kind of dumb and stupid. But like the fact that it was like done at such a scale with like so many people, and it's supposed to be like a musical installation within the campus, and we decided to fold like origami boxes, different sizes with different type of rubber bands and all that stuff, and you were supposed to snap it against this wall of glass, right? So like kind of dumb, whatever, but it was so labor intensive compared to everybody else's.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of big ones too, but this one was, I think, very labor intensive, and the only thing that you get from it is when you snap it on the other side, it kind of sounds like a raindrop or something that hit the wall, and it was like, okay, that was cool, but there was no bigger ideas, but the fact that we did it with a group, that meant way more to me.
Completely.
Being able to like wrangle all these people in than like any other project that I did in school.
Totally. And that I think that having people around you really gives you confidence to say, this is what I stand for too.
Yeah.
And when you have that courage as an artist and you have those people that are around there supporting you, you're so much louder in your own voice, which is important. So
It's definitely, I think, a skill you need to acquire. You need to be able to,
with anything,
stand your ground, but
Completely.
at the same time, be open-minded and collaborate with others. So you finished senior thesis, successful movie, learned some new skills. What are what's in the books for you? What's coming up? What are you working on now?
So at the moment, I'm kind of just interning over the summer and trying to recuperate and really give myself a little bit of space from fashion. Yeah, because it was just a very, very intense year. And so I don't know. I think something may come up in the next couple months. I was approached by talent acquisition for LVMH, which is a massive fashion luxury good conglomerate. So I'm kind of corresponding with a couple houses over there, overseas in Europe. But I guess at the moment I'm leaving my life open to whatever comes, which feels good, but also terrifying. But that's kind of how I've lived my life in the past, is that I've just said, what, I have a general direction that I'd like to head in, but whatever happens along the road happens. And that's how Brazil happened, that's how France happened, that's how Sydney happened, and I've had all of these incredible travel experiences. And if you had told me now what I would have done, if you had told me then what I had done, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, for sure. You would have been like,
I would never believed it, and I want to live my life with that flexibility of some future me coming back and telling me right now what I've done, and just me being like, wow, that's
blown
incredible.
away.
Blown away, yeah. So have a path, but be open to deviation along the way. That's kind of my philosophy.
Cool.
So,
is there anything else you want to add before we go through our segment of questions?
no.
Ready?
Yeah. Segment of questions. What's that?
So obviously we've been asking quite a bit, but we have at the ending we have
Just a firestorm.
this kind of
Okay,
so
let's
the
do it.
special ordinary freaks questions.
Love it.
So I guess I'll start it.
Okay.
For a kid in junior, senior, or recent graduate that wants to, or maybe doesn't know what they want to do, they could be interested in who knows what, maybe fashion, but they don't know how to go about the specific thing. What would you tell that person?
I would try very hard to find as much proximity between you and the person that you want to be. Visibility is incredibly important. Seeing who you want to be, surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be like is everything. So that person may be accessible to you in person, in your community, or it might not be, but find them. Get to know what their day looks like. Get to know what sorts of skills that they apply to their daily life. Maybe this is somebody, maybe it's a blogger, maybe it's a personality that you really appreciate. But get to surround yourself with the people that you want to be like. That was what was most important to me. In terms of not really knowing what you want to do, it's important to obviously try everything, which is advice that they give college graduates. Go out into the world. You may not know exactly what you want to do, but try everything. Intern everywhere, assist everybody. Do the work that some people aren't willing to do, and do it with a smile. And whatever comes. You either have a good time or you have a bad time, and you know what you don't want to do, which is equally as valuable as knowing what you want to do. So.
Yeah, that's great.
What's the best advice you ever gotten, and from who?
Best advice I've ever gotten. Okay, it's from Bridget Jones's diary.
Okay.
And it is my favorite quote, which is, luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
That's a great one.
Yeah, and I think that it's so true. And I think a lot of my success today has to come from preparing and having just a little bit of luck.
We're definitely lucky to have you.
Likewise.
This one's always kind of astounds people, but if you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and where would you take them?
Oh my God. That's a good question.
5 seconds left.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
I want to have dinner with my mom at Apple Holler.
Oh.
Yeah. That's kind of always been our little tradition. And Apple Holler is on the way to the airport.
Yep.
So that is always where we've stopped when she's dropped me off or picked me up from traveling. And my mom's still alive, by the way. So yeah, that's what I want to do.
That's pretty cool. What do you guys usually get?
I
that like since you're a big thing in the whole social media world, like now that place is probably gonna blow up.
I hope so. It better.
You're not gonna
I want
be
a
able to
little
sit down.
a little cardboard cutout of my face to go in the petting zoo. What did we get there? Oh gosh, the apple cider, obviously, applesauce, chicken pot pie. I don't know.
I love chicken.
That's a good start, right?
What's the most common reason for people quitting or just failing in general?
They give up. I think that is an internal problem. I think at the end of the day, you either have the character to be an entrepreneur and a creative, or you don't. And there are people, resources are not a factor. There are people who are doing exactly what they want on a shoestring budget or no money at all. I could have accomplished my thesis without a single penny, but it would have taken a lot of ingenuity and a lot of time. And you either have that or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of it comes down to, have you got what it takes? Are you going to be the person who sticks it out and finishes the work that they're meant to finish for the day and keeps going, gets a head start on tomorrow's work, and is in the studio until 3, 4 in the morning, or you're not? So.
Yeah. I think we agree with that statement.
Right.
We're definitely putting in our time to try to bring the best content, to you guys. But, a lot of people don't see that, and that's why they give up, I feel. Before we ask the last question, I want to thank you again for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
I'm having so much fun.
Totally.
You obviously know that the podcast is called Ordinary Freaks.
Totally.
That name is subjective. It could mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? How much of a freak are you?
Oh, God.
And why?
I think you kind of have to be a freak to do what we do. You have to be able to say, you know what, I'm passionate about something, and everyone's told me that I can't do it or I can't make a living out of it, but I'm going to do it anyway because I believe in it. And you have to be a freak for that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You have to be a freak to be able to be so vulnerable and to have a message that you think that is going to appeal to other freaks.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a freak. Very, very weird in all the right ways.
Well, again, thank you.
Thank you,
Before
guys.
we let you go, can you please let the people know where they can find you, follow you?
Yeah, totally. You can check out my work at elenavelez.com, VELEZ.com, or my Instagram handle, which is at Elena_Velez. I guess my Instagram is probably the body of work that I curate the most and that I contribute to the most, just because it's kind of like a visual resume, and it's really important to the people in the industry. So Instagram's probably the best.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, B.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Here with another episode. See you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.